Welcome. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene. Welcome to those here in person and to the many people joining online from all parts of the world. Whomever you love, whatever you like, whether you think there's any version of a benevolent force with you or not, welcome. My name is Chris Topaz. I use the pronouns she and her, and I'm this morning's worship associate. Today's a special day because it's an all-ages service. If you're a child or a tween hanging in there between childhood and teenage, or in your teen years or older, we happily welcome you to stay together for the entire service. If you're a guardian of a young one who would benefit from time in the child care room, you can take them to room 3 with teachers Kara and Grace now. You may have noticed those round tables in the social hall and wondered, are kids just messing around back there? Well, actually, that space is for anyone who wants to engage in the theme of the worship service in a different way. Today, we're asking each other, what are your thoughts on God? So at those tables, you can make a God's eye or make a collage or a drawing or whatever your image of God is. If today's your first time with us, we'd love to get to know you. Right after service, you're invited to our welcoming room, which is located at the south entrance. And if you're online, the link to our visitor form is being dropped into chat now. You can use your phone to access a copy of our order of service by scanning the QR codes that are scattered throughout the building and on the screen here. We also have a few large print paper copies that you can get from our ushers. Remember that we also have a low stimulation room. It's in the chapel, which is directly opposite the social hall, where you can listen to the service without a crowd of people. Now, let's take a few minutes to greet our neighbors, especially those we don't know yet.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Imani Denherter. My pronouns are she, her. And this morning first, let me backtrack. I'm one of the teaching team here at the church. And I'd like to invite the youth up to the front so we can light the chalice. So any youth in the back want to come on up, and Fiona, if you'd like to join me, we're going to light our chalice today using the words we use in the classroom. I'll give them a second to come on up. Welcome. All right, ready? We light this chalice for Unitarian Universalism. This is the faith of the open minds. This is the faith of the helping hands. This is the faith of the loving hearts. Thank you, everyone.
And now, let's say together the words of our mission, which affirm our shared purpose. Empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world.
One UU says to another, "What are your thoughts on God?" And the other UU says, "Well, that depends on what you mean by God." Good Sunday morning, everyone. I'm the Reverend Jen Youngsun. I use the pronouns she and her, and I am lucky to be able to serve this congregation as its minister. Today, we widen the space for conversation and include everyone to consider this question: what are your thoughts on God? The Unitarian Universalist congregation, being free of religious dogma, includes all kinds of images and concepts, including no God at all. We can't possibly touch on all of them today, so we're going to highlight just 3 of them. Ryan is going to talk about pantheism, which equates God to its creation, to creation. So God is nature, God is the moss, God is the river, God is the forest. And then I'm going to talk about atheism, which finds no reason to consider God at all. And finally, Tina will reflect on supernatural theism, the concept that God is a separate being, one who created the universe but is not part of it. Now, right here in this room, I know that there are some who can barely tolerate the word God because of past religious trauma. And there are those of you in the room who long to hear it more in worship. A community that holds so many different beliefs can be perplexing or confusing to some, especially to our youngest members. And that's why we always teach that the primary religious educator is the parent or guardian. And that's why it's important for you to know your own thoughts on God in order to provide a grounding, not only for your own life, but for the lives of your children. So come, let us be with each other in this multiplicity. Come, let us worship together.
My name is Jackson, and I believe in God. I think He is just a giant human looking after the earth a lot and helps people grow and stay alive and other things like that. Okay.
My name is Marilyn. I am 7 years old. I'm a Girl Scout. I think God is stuff. He creates stuff, and the King of Gods creates lightning. Boom! And that's all.
Hi, my name is Kino. I'm not exactly sure what God is, but it could be different things. People have different beliefs of what God is. There could be several gods from different religions that still exist. And yeah.
I'm Eli. My pronouns are she, they, he. Pronouns or pronouns? I don't know. My idea of God is that there isn't really a God. My thoughts are typically that if there was a God, there wouldn't be so much pain and suffering in the world. And what the often Christian God is said is that the Christian God is powerful, but they also say that the sin and is even. So I'm a little confused about that. But yeah, that's my idea of God.
Hi, I'm Silas, and I think of God as something that's beyond us, if it really is real. That we think of ourselves as smart and superior to other animals, but really we've destroyed the planet, and then we just say that we kind of forgave it by holding it back together, but really we've just continued its pain. And really, I don't get why people think God is real if he didn't, or she didn't, or they didn't do anything about that. How many mistakes we've made and how many things we've did wrong. So that's what I think of as God, if they even are real.
My name is Simon. God's splendor. Don't eat it, it's horrible. That's all.
Hello, good morning again. All right, so God, There is so much power, weight, and baggage in really just such a small word. But what I find intriguing about the idea of God is that it can be interpreted in so many different ways. For the last 8 months, I have been privileged to be a religious educator. I delight in my work, but at times, having a title that seems to lend an air of authority to my thoughts on the holy gives me a bit of imposter syndrome. So let me tell you, I don't have this God thing figured out. But one of my favorite things about our church is the invitation and the opportunity to share and learn from such a variety of beliefs and experiences. In our religious exploration classes, we've talked a bit the last couple of weeks about this big idea of God. We've learned that all over the world, this idea has many names: Jehovah, Allah, Divine Mother, Krishna, Yahweh, Great Spirit, and the Flying Spaghetti Monster, just to name a few. A moment ago, you got to hear from a few of our kids and youth sharing their thoughts. I hope you found them as enlightening as I did. I'm up here to share an interpretation of God that I believe many youths hold. God as nature, or that intricate web of life that connects all living things. Some folks feel close to God in a cathedral or temple, maybe like this. Maybe. But I know a lot of people in this room feel that pull instead when they're in a place like this. There are many folks who feel connected to the divine on a walk through the woods, more so than in a church, even one that is as beautiful as our building. Have you heard of forest bathing? I see some nods. I don't mean taking a bathtub and dragging it along behind you with your rubber ducky into the woods. That's not it. Forest bathing comes from the Japanese shinrin-yoku. It means to take in the forest atmosphere or any natural environment and to serve as a kind of ecotherapy. It has grown in popularity over the years as practitioners extol the physical and mental benefits of listening to birds calling to each other around you, feeling the rough bark on a tree, tasting the fresh air, smelling the fragrance of the expansive plant life, and seeing sunlight filter through leaves. Forest bathers come home more relaxed, more refreshed, and more peaceful. Have they experienced the holy? Could forest bathing be a form of prayer? Recently, I received a call from Oregon Health Sciences University, OHSU. A nurse was inquiring to see if I would like to participate in a research study taking place for breast cancer patients. The intention of the study was to attempt to replicate the effects of forest bathing in a clinical setting to see if it could boost a patient's natural immune system. I was more than a little surprised by the call. Frankly, I was shocked that an American medical school was seriously considering the benefits of nature to be a legitimate form of treatment for cancer patients. But I was also confounded by the idea that the mysterious power of nature could be bottled up and reproduced in a lab setting. Sadly, I didn't qualify for participation in the study, but I'll be waiting and watching to hear what OHSU has to say. Could you see God in the delicate petals of a flower, in the perfect spiral of a snail shell, in the feeling of soft breeze on your cheek? I'm not sure if I see God there, but it does make me appreciate life a little more. In closing, I'd like to share a little bit from my favorite poet, one I feel is a bit more of an expert on this subject, Mary Oliver. I don't know who God is exactly, but I'll tell you this. I was sitting in the river named Clarion on a water-splashed stone, and all afternoon I listened to the voices of the river talking. Whenever the water struck the stone, it had something to say, and the water itself, and even the mosses trailing under the water. And slowly, very slowly, it became clear to me what they were saying. Said the river, I am part of holiness. And I too, said the stone. And I too, whispered the moss beneath the water.
There are so many different ways to celebrate the little and big joys in our lives. And when we can come together and share the things that are hurting in our hearts, that makes that burden a little bit less. Today I want to light the candle of life for John Hartman, who died on Friday morning. Some of you may know his partner, Sally O'Donnell, a little bit more. I know that you are grieving your own losses, losses of family, losses of friends, loss of capacity, things that you used to be able to do that you're no longer able to do, things you used to enjoy that you're not able to enjoy. There's so much grief everywhere for the state of our world, for the state of our politics. And sitting right next to those, we yet have things that we want to celebrate. And every day we strive to find something that we can call out in thanks. Every day we reach for a gratitude for something. This is the spiritual practice of Unitarian Universalism, to allow sorrow to rise right along with the joy. For all of the joys and sorrows that remain in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts, I pray that they may be heard by the great mystery, by your friends here in the church, maybe by the moss under the water. May it be so. Amen. The former nun and author Karen Armstrong once observed that even though we now live in a totally transformed world and have an entirely different worldview, people have always thought about God in exactly the same way as we do today. But despite our scientific and technological brilliance, our religious thinking is sometimes remarkably undeveloped and primitive. When politicians pray for God to bless this nation, when people beg God to favor their side in a football game or war, when people claim that God punishes our sins with tornadoes or pandemics or forest fires, this is the undeveloped image of God that many of us have rejected. Some of us have gone on to craft an image or an idea that works a little bit better for us. We envision God as the force of the universe, or the power of love, or just simply as the higher power. Now, others of us have taken that idea of God and rejected it altogether, finding absolutely no use for it in our lives. Atheism is a worldview that includes a wide array of ideas. One idea denies a creator or a being that manages the universe on a day-to-day basis, because the universe manages itself through natural laws and natural processes. Some atheists say that maybe there is some kind of God, but it doesn't reward the good or punish the wicked, and certainly God doesn't have anything to do with our day-to-day lives. There are the agnostic beliefs, the agnostic atheists who say that you can't prove or disprove the existence or non-existence of God. If there is a God, then we'll all find out in the end, right? But until then, there's really no reason to spend much time thinking about it. Some people say that over human history, the word God has meant so many things to so many different people over thousands and thousands of years, it has become practically meaningless. Again, there's just no good reason to spend any time thinking about it or talking about it. If you're interested in reading more about the subject of atheism, there's a really great book by Greg Epstein called Good Without God. Some of you are nodding, like, yes, I read that book. I put the title and the author in the order of service that you can get either online, or we have a few hard copies by the door over there. Greg calls himself an atheist and a humanist rabbi. He leads the chaplains at Harvard University. And this hasn't been easy for him. But he knows how important it is to actually use the word atheist, and so he does, but not without a cost. Even though there are millions and millions of atheists in the world, it is an identity that can be risky to claim. Even though Congress now has 3 Unitarian Universalists and a handful of not affiliated or humanists, there is no one who will claim the title atheist. Not yet, but I think the day is coming. According to the Atheist Alliance International, which is recognized by the UN, about a dozen countries in the world have laws against disbelief. It's illegal in about 13 nations around the world to claim that you're an atheist. The vision of the Atheist Alliance is a completely secular world without religion. Now, even though I appreciate their work to help atheists who are harassed and kidnapped and arrested, I actually don't want a world that has no religion at all. I love it that human beings find so many ways to express their beliefs and their religious thought, especially the ones that are willing to acknowledge that we live in an entirely different world now, and the ones that are able to update their thought and update their beliefs with the times. Now, don't get me wrong, the ancient religions have their own beauty. The art and the music, the poetry is something to be preserved. But we can't ignore that there are things that we have learned over the millennia, right? We're learning every day exciting new things from the James Webb Telescope. We're learning amazing things from quantum theory and from neurobiology. Atheists can help to show that we can be good without God, that humans can find a ground for moral and ethical living without God, that we can love deeply and care passionately about the suffering of other creatures without God, and we can experience mystery and wonder and awe even without God.
So my name is Tina, and I use she, her pronouns. We heard from Ryan on pantheism and Rev Jen on atheism. And I am here to talk about the belief in God as supernatural, as a supernatural being, supernatural theism. I grew up Presbyterian and then switched over to Unitarian Universalism as an adult. And as a UU, I've had trouble talking about God. Maybe some of you have trouble as well. The word had a specific meaning for me as a supernatural being as I grew up. But I was also taught that God is love, and that I am a child of God, and we humans are created in the image of God. So my relationship to God growing up was actually a good one. I even was taught the belief of universalism and accepted it from a young age. I never thought that an all-loving God and an all-compassionate God would ever damn people to hell. So I'm excited to be talking about this belief of God as a supernatural entity because it informs some of my views of love being the supreme force in the universe that I believe in. And I'm excited to be talking about this view of God because having these conversations of differing beliefs is why I love this UU community so much. So I really loved what some of our kiddos and youth said in their videos about their beliefs or non-beliefs in God. Some of them stated a belief in God as a supernatural being. Jackson, if you guys remember, said, God is a giant human who looks after the earth and helps people grow and helps people stay alive. I think Jackson's back there somewhere, right? Yeah. And Merowyn said, God creates stuff and God creates lightning. I think that was pretty cool too. I really love that our community is a place where kids, youth, adults are allowed to search for their own truth and meaning and their own beliefs. I love how our community is a place where these beliefs can evolve over time. Some of us may have beliefs in God as a supernatural being, and some of us may not. All of those beliefs and everything in between is good and okay in this UU community. So as we know, supernatural theism has been taken up by many religions. Judaism, Islam, Christianity are some. And within Christianity, there are a few beliefs of how God manifests in the world. And as many of you know here, as Unitarianism, the belief in the one God, right? So we are all familiar with that Unitarian belief, which, as many of you know, was heretical during the Reformation period. This was when the Trinitarian dogma and doctrine was accepted by more reforming Christians. The Trinity talks about how God is manifested in the world as three entities: God, the supernatural Father, the Holy Ghost, a spirit of God working through society, and the Son, where God took on the form of a human named Jesus. In this belief of God as a supernatural being, God can manifest themselves however God chooses. The belief that God was made flesh and existed as a human through the person Jesus, according to Christians and the New Testament, was to show us God's love. And according to these New Testament scriptures, Jesus came to preach and proclaim the good news of God's kingdom to all. Jesus came to set the oppressed free, to free prisoners, to give sight to the blind, and to give news to the poor. So if you look at God coming to earth through Jesus in this light, you can see that God is a God of liberation. Jesus came to turn the world of empire and oppression upside down, according to these New Testament scriptures. Many Christians still believe in the liberation that Christianity can bring. Yet, some Christians misinterpret what the Bible is actually saying. In college and seminary, I chose to view God as a liberator. The belief that God was made human allows for many humans to relate to an embodied leader. For many people and cultures, God as liberator has been a source of life and has helped people survive some really horrific situations, including slavery. I still believe that whatever force is out there is one of liberation for all. So this belief of God embodied is explained in a Joan Osborne song, many of you may know, called One of Us, that was popular in the 90s. And now we're going to sing and play that song. So think about it. What if God could be one of us? Would that make us treat one another with more compassion and love? I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure. So as members of this community, it's our job to be accepting of all the beliefs that we may all have. It is also our job to encourage each other to keep exploring our beliefs. We are all different people, and we all think a little bit different too. So to conclude our sermon time this morning, I want to encourage each of you to talk about your thoughts or not thoughts on God with someone here or out there. Our UU Church is a place for all to be able to explore their beliefs. So if on one Sunday you do not hear your beliefs reflected in the service, know that there might be some folks for whom that service did reach, and then support that. And also know that in another service, you might actually hear your beliefs reflected. So let's remember to be accepting and encouraging of all of our beliefs, so long as they don't harm anyone. And let us talk about these beliefs together. So I encourage you to even talk with your neighbor you are seated with today about your God or not God beliefs, or talk with someone at coffee hour about this too. To conclude, I will leave you with the lyrics of the 90s Dishwalla song. Tell me all your thoughts on God, 'cause I'd really like to meet her and ask her why we're who we are. Peace.
We're going to use some different words for our closing today because these are the words that the youth use when they are concluding their holy time together. And so let's say these together as someone extinguishes the chalice, please. Thank you. We gather the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action back into the world of do and say, and carry it forward into the dawning day. Friends, as you go, remember that we need not think alike to love alike. Go in peace. Go in love.